Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask me yesterday if I could go ahead and cover for you guys what I think most people should do to build a home gym, because I have a home gym. I obviously have a pretty good setup, and I've kind of made fun of the really overpriced, useless setups that people like Cali Muscle and Alpha M and other people have with all these machines and everything else. Because generally speaking, I agree with most exercise scientists and coaches in that free weights bring a lot more to the table than machines and cables and things do. And I'm not saying those things for some people don't have their place, but the vast, overwhelming majority of people who are seeking to just get into general shape, or people who are going to be athletic in any sort of endeavor, really need to focus on free weights, and in many cases exclusively free weights. And so really all you need access to is the ability to do big basic lifts and weighted body weight exercises. And outside of that, you don't really need much of anything else unless you have a specific need that arises. And what I want to show people here is that obviously you can do pretty much anything you want in terms of building any body part, any movement pattern, developing overall maximal muscle mass. Things like that can be done with a setup like what I have, but you don't necessarily need as much as I have. So what I want to state up front, what you really need to start with is a good rack. Now I obviously have a Rogue half rack. I don't use a full rack here because, again, space constraints. I have this one in a bedroom, and this gives me more space to work with. And now some people say, what about security? Well, you can get safeties for it. My half rack here, which easily fits into a relatively small bedroom, it's not a massive bedroom, and we have our bed and a couple of chest of drawers and a bedside table and everything in here, so I don't have a lot of space left for this rack and for the flooring and everything, because I needed room to be able to deadlift and snatch and clean and things like that. Which is what all of you are going to want if you're trying to get the best results possible. Those are exercises you need to be doing. So to give myself room for flooring, I had to go with a half rack. And so for most people, that works a little better than a full rack with 4 posts. And this one, even with the safeties added, the rack itself cost me around $800, but it's rated to 1,000 pounds. Rated to 1,000 pounds, and you need one with safeties, and that included the extra safety arms and a chin-up bar up at the top. That gives you a lot of versatility right there. In fact, that's the first piece of equipment you're going to want to buy, is something like that, a good rack. And for many people, a half rack works better with safeties added. And like I said, in this case, you've got a lot of bang for your buck there, and it's a lot of equipment for such a small space. So that's what I have there. Now, what you're also going to want next is going to be an Olympic barbell. Again, I like the Rogue ones. The Rogues are priced just as well as anything else out there. Like the one I've got showing in this picture is $250. It's rated to 1,000 pounds. Now, what we're going to get into, the interesting point is you're eventually going to want a couple different bars. But for most people, you're going to want one like what I have here, like the Rogue 2.0 bar is what I'm using. It's slightly whippy, and it has no center knurling. All right, that's what you're going to want for your first bar. Now, is that ideal for squats? No, it's not ideal for squats. But most people are not going to get strong enough that it's going to matter. You may reach a strength threshold to where it matters, but if you guys see in this one, I'm doing, I think, 465 in the heaviest single on this one today. I have another bar on the way right now. Because I'm getting to a point where I know it's going to be a limiting factor. That bar will be, as far as the most weight I can move safely and securely without the center knurling and maybe the extra whip in the bar. But you need that, because there are exercises you don't want a really stiff bar and center knurling on. That's going to be namely the overhead press, which I consider to be a non-optional lift. The press, it's called the press, is actually the historic name for the strict standing press. That center knurling can scratch your chin. So you're going to want a bar without that, because the press is one of the most important lifts. You're just going to have to set in tighter on your squat. It's not going to give you a lot of leeway because you don't have that knurling to dig in to your back. But if you can learn to squat correctly, it'll be fine. And for things like power cleans, any sort of your Olympic lifts, you don't want that center knurling, and you want a slightly whippy bar for all of that. So it gives you a bar that allows you to do those other lifts safely, that maybe it isn't the most secure for your squat, but like I said, it's just fine until you get brutally strong. For most people out there, you're not going to get strong enough, at least not in your first few years, to where that lack of center knurling is going to be a the deciding factor for you. And then by then you can always buy a second bar, right? You can always buy a second bar. But you want all of that. And then you're going to want to get some plywood and rubber matting. You'd be surprised. I have $40 worth of rubber matting down. That's what I paid on Amazon for rubber matting over a couple layers of really hard plywood. I have, bought really hard plywood from Lowe's. And that's what I have laid down underneath it. All right, that gives you a good platform for all of your floor work, your deadlifts, your cleans, your snatches, pin lay rows, all that stuff where you're going to have to drop the weight on the floor. That's going to give you the security that you want there. It's going to help reduce the chances of damaging your floor. And the more you're worried about that, the more layers of plywood you can stack. You can always put 2 layers of plywood to have a pair of sheets. But right now, like mine, I'm running 4x8. So I basically have an 8-foot by 8-foot platform right there that all my stuff is on. And I have enough room for that. And that's my workout space. So you're going to want that. And then when it comes to things like plates, you're going to want some plates that are softer. If you guys look down there, I do have a couple of the calibrated 45s, but all those 55s, and I might have gone overboard on that, they tend to be a little more, but I have training plates. And if that's too pricey for you, get yourself a pair of bumpers. But the point is, all of your floor work, you're going to want to start with 1 bumper on each side. It's going to be bouncier, and in this case, I've got those training plates. Because those are, again, the Rogue training plates. They're designed to bounce and be safer on the floor and have bounce, so they're just not metal hitting the floor. And in that case, you're going to pay more. I think I paid $3.15 a pair for each of those, and that's a big investment. If that's too pricey for you, get 1 pair of bumpers. Get 1 pair of bumpers, 45-pound bumpers. They're going to cost you a lot less. But then after that, you could go with something like Rogue's calibrated plates. Those blue ones, they're very thin. They're only $180 a pair. So you're going to end up paying $2 a pound. And I know that's going to add up. People are going to be like, man, I'm going to spend $500 on plates that way. Yeah, you will eventually. But here's the thing. You buy the plates according to your strength. If you're on a tighter budget and you still want quality equipment like that, you could buy the really cheap bumpers, 1 for each side. Those cheap cap ones, I think you can get them less than $1 a pound. Then buy pairs of the 45s. For those thinner ones as your strength progresses. And basically your deadlift is always going to determine how many plates you need. And for most men, I'm going to recommend up front going ahead and getting 4 pairs of 45s. I do 55s because I've got really high strength goals and it's just easier to it's less plates for me to stack on over time. And that's fine. It's going to depend on how strong you really plan on getting. If you don't plan on going over about a 500 deadlift in your life, which is going to be the majority of you, I'd say most healthy young men need to get to a 500 deadlift. Then not a big deal, but start with enough weight to get up to 405. For women, start with enough weight to get up to about 315. So if you're a female and you plan on getting reasonably strong, get yourself enough place to get up to 315. It's going to cost you less. You're going to spend a couple hundred less than a man for your initial investment. But, if it's a couple, you live together, you're going to want to get stuff for the guy. So plates are really going to be where the tricky thing is. And then after that, you just get other accessories. That bench cost me less than $100. It's a Rogue bench. It is rated to 1,000 pounds. Get yourself a good belt. And then the thing is, if you go with a modular system like I have with Rogue, you can buy all these extra accessories later, like the plate holders on the side. You can buy those later. I've got dipping bars over there in the back. You can buy that stuff later and add it to it. Just make sure they're compatible with the system that you get. And that's why I like companies like them, because they have all these different add-ons. You can just keep adding to it as needed, different parts and components you can put on there, specialty bars. But at the very least, you're going to want to start with a bar. You're going to want to start with enough place to get up to about 405. You're going to want a rack. And like I said, things like the bench you can add later. Bench press isn't 100% mandatory. You could do floor presses. If you're trying to build it on the tightest budget you can to start, you can do floor presses till you get enough saved up for the bench. Because you've got everything else you need with that. With what you have right there alone, without any specialty bars, other stuff, you can do weighted chin-ups, weighted pull-ups, every single floor lift, Olympic lift, every variation of deadlift, whatever types of squats you want to do, back squats, front squats. You can do your standing presses. You can build every single muscle in your body. My God, you can even do curls with the Olympic bar if you need to. You have everything that you need. you can pretty much reach, for most people, the performance and physique goals that you're shooting for can be reached with that setup. You should be able to do that for about $1,500. And that's just lifetime equipment that will get you to your goals. And then if your goals get more serious, you can always add more stuff. You can add more specialty stuff like I have on there, different bars, more expensive plates, more plates. For me, what you're seeing here, guys, 50% of what I own is in plates. Like all these bars and everything else added up, probably barely scratch the surface of what my plates cost. I think I've got like $1,700, $1,800 worth of plates right there. So, it is what it is. And I think my total investment when I have my other bar that gets here, I think I've got $4,500 tied up in it. But again, that's because I have some relatively expensive plates. I've got several different bars, the dipping handles, all that stuff. And I've got grip training equipment over there. Most of you aren't going to need all of that. That's stuff you can add later as your budget allows for it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.